Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guests Sanskriti Dawle, Aman Srivastava, Dilip Ramesh, and Saif Shaikh, all of whom are the co-founders of Thinkerbell Labs, an assistive technology company located in Bengaluru, India. Together, they've created a product called Annie, the world's first Braille literacy device that enables blind and visually impaired children to read, write, and type in Braille in their own regional languages. It serves as a personal tutor with audio-guided lessons. During the program, we'll be learning why and how Thinkerbell Labs and Annie came about, and how they've grown, developed, and operated today. In so doing, we'll come to better understand and appreciate how their noteworthy efforts are contributing to the education of blind and visually impaired children. Let's start by meeting our guest and then learning all about Thinkerbell Labs and Annie. Welcome. So delighted you're all able to be here. It's been exciting to find out about Annie, to hear about the impact you've had and upcoming plans. Eager to find out more and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I also think it would be of interest if each of you would just briefly share a little bit about your background, professional interest, and the position you hold at the company. Sanskriti, would you please start?
My pleasure. Thank you for having us, Jay. It is an honor and a pleasure to be on this show. And my name is Sanskriti. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Thinkerbell Labs. You already know what the company does, but I'll tell you a little bit more about ourselves. Myself, Dilip, and Aman, we are computer science engineers from BITS Pilani, premier university in India. And Saif is a mechanical engineer from the same university. We come from the same college, and he is 1 year junior. So we started as a campus startup. We had our first office on our college campus, and we've come a long way since then.
Nice, nice, nice. Can you take us through the history and development a little bit more, from the initial collaboration at a school? Then how and why did Thinkerbell Labs and eventually Annie come about?
Yeah, definitely. Guys, would one of you like to go and then you introduce yourself also as you answer the question?
Sure, I would love to. So as Sanskriti said, we are classmates, and we started working together in college in various projects. And yeah, to introduce myself, I'm Aman, and one of the co-founders. And we honestly, the thing that unites four of us is building technology which can have an impact. And that's how we actually collaborated in various different projects before finally, coming up with this and going ahead with this. And it was actually breakfast table conversation on a Sunday where Sanskriti thought she had the idea, the very unique idea of a relay. And I remember saying to her, oh no, this actually came up, people build this 180 years back, 200 years back, a relay has been built. And then she was like, wow, okay. And it was out of a complete flash, she was like, oh, okay, can we use this similar electromagnetic into, linear movement and create Braille from it? And we were like, yeah, I'm sure we can do that. And that's because at that point we were trying a lot of things with this credit card sized computer called the Raspberry Pi. And we thought, oh, can we use a Raspberry Pi to create some kind of a tactile feedback mechanism? And that's how it started. That's how we got into the problem, because we were working on various social impact type of projects together, and we wanted to figure out if Braille could be created in a particular way. And that's how. And then when we started researching, we realized the Braille literacy rate was low all over the world, and that's how we got into this. That's how it started.
Terrific, terrific. Dilip, a few words about yourself as we continue.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Dilip. I'm one of the co-founders again. I'm also the CTO, Chief Technical Officer. I've been involved very closely with the product from the very early days of Annie and now Polly as well. So I mean, you've heard the background of Thinkerbell Labs, but my personal interest, like Aman was saying, one thing is definitely that of social impact, having something that is in the intersection of technology and social impact. And yeah, it's been a very unique journey, I would say, in the sense a lot of learnings and also a lot of unlearnings about our previous, preconceived notions, and then learning the right things, I would say. So that's an ongoing process, and it's been beautiful so far. We're very happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Sure. Saif, welcome. A little bit about your background and maybe picking up what Dilip just mentioned. What were some of the stages of development, maybe a sense of the prototypes that you went through to where you are today, please?
Yeah, hi Jay. Thank you for having us on the show. My name is Saif. As Sanskriti mentioned, I'm 1 year junior to the rest of us in the team, and it all started in college. And the way I happened to stumble upon Aman Sanskriti and Dilip back then is that while they were working with the initial prototype, the idea of using simple actuators and a simple card-sized computer like a Raspberry Pi, how do we couple that and make something simply meaningful or useful for someone to learn better. And the idea came is that yes, let's make a product that helps visually impaired learn better, and importantly, more so because we know that, importantly, more so after interacting with some of the teachers and educators in India, we realized that the state of education for visually impaired is particularly low, so which kind of made us more intrigued and more committed to solve the problem. So when I initially joined, the early prototypes were all made out of cardboard boxes and or like a plastic box which was carved out of carved using a hot knife, and it had wires going around all the way. It was like just any other college project would look like. And yeah, and me personally, in college, had keen interest in just building, uh, developing anything. Like I was part of a team that was building, a, you know, an all-terrain vehicle or a student Formula One car team. So that's where my interest lies in designing things better and making something useful out of it. So I joined majorly as a product designer, but as the journey went along, the challenge of building efficient braille learning systems made me more interested in the journey. And then uh, yeah, that's pretty much how, like, starting from an initial prototype that looked like that was made out of cardboard box to something that looks like a very well finished product and does the job effectively now. So it's been
Nice.
incredible so far. Yeah.
As you've been on the journey, have you consulted with other professional and in related fields, collaborated with the blind or visually impaired in this process? What's been involvement of others?
Yeah. Aman, do you want to take this through the early collaborations? Yeah.
Absolutely. So initially, Jay, when we started, we had won this competition by the Department of International Trade, the government of UK, and because of them, we ended up in the UK, and simultaneously we studied how the RNIB, which is the Royal National Institute of the Blind, how they were, what systems of learning they were using, what content and curricula were they using. And at the same time, we did this similar study with the National Institute for Empowerment of People with Visual Disabilities, NIPVD, in India. So, and we sort of combined all these systems, understood, okay, if these are systems of learning, what takes it into the new paradigm that we are building, the new digital platform that we are creating. And so these were the various inputs that were taken, significant, usability studies, a lot of, even deep evaluation studies were conducted by these institutions to give us feedback. And I think Dilip can add in a bit more. Now that we've launched with the American Printing House for all of USA, we've actually had a lot of input and after extensive field testing in the US. So that.
Wonderful. We see in front of us a finished product now that's on the market. Annie, can you point out some of the features that are on the screen here and how students access and interact with it, please?
Sure, happy to take that. So what you see on the screen right now is Annie, the world's most comprehensive braille literacy device, as we call it. So what you can see at the top part of the device towards your left are two large braille cells. Those 6 dots make up one cell, so you can see 2 of those in the top left, and that's roughly 5 times larger than the standard braille cell, which you might be accustomed to seeing on lift buttons or in trains or any other accessible places. And on the top right side, you can see 6 of those standard braille cells, which follows the same standard as what is set out in globally. In the middle, you have a speaker. So basic idea behind Annie is that it's a literacy device that talks to you. It takes you through various lessons, exercises, games, and songs, and every kind of interaction that makes learning fun. And at the end of it all, you master braille. So you master essential skills for literacy, which are reading, writing, and typing, because we're in the digital era now. So we have these 3 essential skills that are taught by Annie in a very interactive manner. So I would say Annie is something that's in the middle of both audio and braille. We're not missing out on audio as well. There's a very soft spoken voice, which is not text to speech, because that is something that can become boring and mundane if you're using it repeatedly. But we have a very soft human recorded voice to give that personal touch to learning. Annie is also a connected device. What that does is involve all other stakeholders in the education of a visually impaired child. So you have a dashboard which gives you usage data, analytics on how you're performing, what your progress has been like, what are the areas where you need to improve further, and gives you a general idea of where you stand with respect to your braille skills. So all of it put together is this great learning tool called Annie.
What were some of the major challenges in creating this device and sort of the breakthrough that really contributed to the success of its design?
I think following up on what I said in my introduction about unlearning and learning again, I think a lot of our breakthroughs came from there. Just to give some anecdotal insights, very simple things which we usually took for granted when designing for the sighted world, typically web applications or mobile applications, things like a scroll bar. That is something that we were very used to from a very long time ago, being engineers, being in the tech world for a long time. We thought, okay, scroll is a very simple features, but to build a voice and audio tactile scroll on Annie took us about 6 months of time with all the research and all the testing and field trials to try and come up with the best sort of scroll mechanism within the menu of Annie to basically pick which lesson or which game you want to play, such that it is very intuitive and user friendly for users, like very cute Pratham, who's on the screen right now. Pratham is a student from Pune in India. So it took us a lot of time to build those things. So I would say understanding of the requirement of this market, of the users here, which has predominantly been a very underlooked and underserved market, mostly looked at in the lens of charity or philanthropy. But we had to sort of undo all of that thinking and look at it as we would do any other market, any other industry, and build products from scratch. It needed all of the research and development to come in. And every day was a new challenge, because a lot of the things that we were doing, even though they sounded similar to things that had been done before, had actually not been done for this market. So that, I think, put a lot of difficulty in our journey, but also that was the fun part.
Mm-hmm. How were the students introduced to Annie, whether in or outside the classroom?
So we have, give me a second. So we have 2 modes of operation. Typically, a child with blindness is either studying in a special school for blind children where they're surrounded by other children with the same disability, or they are a part of an inclusive education setup in which you'll have a mainstream classroom, like maybe 30-40 students, and you have your mainstream teacher, and the blind child is just sitting with other sighted classmates. And so although Annie is designed as a personal learning companion, primarily children get access to it in school. In India, we follow the Annie Smart Class model for special schools, where the entire school has a set of 10 or 20 Annies based on their average class size. And like a computer lab resource, it is shared between students of all classes by having an Annie Braille period. But in inclusive education setup, which is the case in the US or the UK, or actually even adopted officially in policy in India, we have Annie that is available to the student at their own school, while the itinerant teacher and the special teacher visits, say, maybe once or twice a week. The child can continue learning every day, whether or not the teacher is physically present. So Annie enables remote learning, and that's the real, I feel, the thing that will scale and actually solve this global issue, because we are ensuring that the child reaches their learning outcomes, whether or not they have a personal tutor hand holding them, so they can practice their lessons, as is the case with any mainstream students as well. Like when we learn the alphabet, when we learn how to read and write, we repeat it so many times that we do not ever think about the shapes of the letters. We don't say, oh, there is a horizontal line and there's a vertical line and therefore it's a T. We just know the meaning of T, and that is through repetition and practice and constant exposure. And with Annie, we want the same the same benefits of the process to be passed on to children with visual impairment as well.
Very exciting to get a clearer picture of what's involved here. What's been some of the reaction and feedback from the students, teachers, and others, maybe in the Braille literacy field, to your efforts so far?
We've had overwhelmingly positive feedback. I think that's because there's a dearth in the space of interactive edtech. I mean, I was born in the 90s, so I grew up with game CDs with Reader Rabbit and Jumpstart and things like that. So you could just practice your alphabet, and that was the most natural thing, and that was 30 years ago. And here we are in the 21st century, and children have never had such a fun way to learn Braille ever before. I think that's really that's really key in their experience of it, and why they're so excited about it, because Braille has been this boring thing or a tedious thing that they have to learn. And blind children are just like any other children. They don't want to learn something because it is good for them. They want to learn it because they can play with their friends, they can have competitions with their friends, so they can score better than their friends, and they have a common point of interest to connect to. So the reasons for learning are very much the same as any other child. So we want to bring that fun and bring that playful energy into the Braille learning journey as well. And we've also had, one of my couple of my favorite anecdotes are in our very first field trials as well. We we went to Dehradun in India, which is the model school for visually handicapped, and we had a little child who just she on the third day of the pilot testing, we said, okay, thank you children, whatever, we'll take these back now. And she just refused to part ways with Annie. She loved it so much, and it was a very old prototype, and it did not have all the bells and whistles of the machine today, but she just took it and she ran around the school, and we had to chase her. We're chasing her, the teachers are chasing her, because she's like, I'm not going to leave Annie. She's just clasping onto it like that. It was lovely.
It can't be any better testimony than that. That is for sure. Now, you mentioned earlier Polly, which is being introduced in the United States. Just a couple of words as we see a couple of images of Polly about the plan and so far what its introduction has been like in the States.
Well, in the United States, we've partnered with American Printing House for the Blind, which is more than a 150-year-old organization based in Kentucky. And APH is the nodal organization for streamlining technology funding. And originally, it used to be a printing house for Braille material. And today they've modernized to have an entire portfolio of assistive technology, of which we are now offering one device of that entire portfolio, which is Poly. Poly is APH and Thinkerbell Labs partnership to bring best-in-class Braille learning methodologies to children in the US. It has, obviously it has a US accent, Poly speaking to the child. And we also have phonics lessons and some other special content for our US students. We also the most wonderful part about this partnership with APH is that students in the US can get access to Poly entirely free of cost, because it is covered under the federal quota scheme for assistive technology for visually impaired learners. So children are already picking up Braille learning on Poly. We are very excited to see how this school year is going to go, because even in the lull of the vacation, our first batch of Polys that we shipped to the US was sold out in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we are very thrilled and excited to be bringing this cutting edge technology for Braille learning to the US, and I'm sure it's only the beginning.
Most definitely, most definitely. You've had some wonderful occasions to share your product. A few years ago, here we see you with Prince and Princess of Wales. Just a very quick word about what this occasion was like.
Aman, would you like to take that?
Sure. So it was one of, at that point, definitely one of our first few inflection points in the journey. This was, there was a large amount of media in front, and we actually had only 3 weeks to prepare for this. And there's a long story, which we'll definitely let you know when we are back in Newton, maybe in person. But at this point, demonstrating that the technology could teach anyone Braille while having such great exposure. So we actually ended up teaching them George in Braille, which is their son's name. And there were a couple of other demonstrations as well, but I feel like Annie really took the cake that day.
For sure. And then in the time remaining, I'd like to hear about the success and the experience of appearing on Shark Tank India. Any of you just quick comments about this opportunity?
Well, yeah, I think talking about our Shark Tank India experience would be incomplete without talking about our brand ambassador, Prathamesh. Prathamesh is a student from Pune in India, and we met him first in 2019, when he was even cuter than he is today, because he was tiny. And we were. I remember Saif was training children in the school, and it was for class 5 and onwards. And this little kid from class 3 comes in and says, hey, I want to learn this thing. It sounds exciting. It sounds new. And so he nags his teachers and he tags along for the training. And very quickly, he is the one teaching other children, because he's extremely smart. And it was amazing for us to actually, have a platform like mainstream TV to tell our story, because what Shark Tank India did was it made Braille literacy, from something that nobody ever gave much thought to, it turned it into a topic of dinner table conversations. And just getting that awareness going has been phenomenal for our growth in India as well. I mean, when you create a new technology, you need to create the entire community around it in order to make it a reality. Otherwise, it'll just remain research. And I feel like Shark Tank has advanced that conversation significantly, because earlier it was either people with some connection to blindness in their family who would perhaps think of or consider something like, how are we meeting literacy outcomes for blind children? But because of the Shark Tank platform, we were lucky to get investment from 3 of the sharks, and we were also, able to reach out to a large number of people. And the best part was Prathamesh talking about Annie and Prathamesh demoing Annie as a user. I mean, I could go on and talk all day and night about Annie does this and Annie does that, but it will never be the same as a user talking about what the product does for them and their own connection to Annie. That's something completely different from our relationship with the product as the engineers behind it, So really platforming that user story was beautiful.
Wonderful, wonderful. You mentioned Newton, and I know recently another occasion where you were honored. Your participation with MIT Solve was a big success and recognized. In just a couple of minutes we have left, any reflections about this recent opportunity for you and the group? Any of you who would like to just share a little bit about the MIT Solve experience, please?
Aman, would you like to take that?
Absolutely. So we've had a really great last, I would say, 6 months, especially after winning MIT Solve, then attending their various events. But most importantly, it's just been, a community of people and the kind of network that they have and the credibility that they have in this, so that has really helped us across the board, whether it's supply chain issues, whether it's any technological problem or any pedagogical studies that we want to conduct, anything across the board, they've helped us a lot. And they continue to help, making connections with grant making authorities, family foundations who are working this sector, and especially people who are on the cutting edge of it, right? Variable learning, early literacy, and you see that so it has really helped us quite a bit. But most importantly, we now have a small family in Boston thinking about us constantly, and that's very, very reassuring. It's very reassuring to have someone like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. In closing, what are some of your current and upcoming plans for Thinkerbell Labs?
Well, for starters,
go ahead, Sanskriti. Yeah. No, go ahead, please.
Would you like to talk about some of the new technologies we're working on?
Saif might be the best person to talk about that. Saif?
Please.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, the exciting path ahead for us is how could we, make learning better for any age visually impaired person, right? We started with tackling the problem of low literacy, and our product Annie and Polly addresses early age learners who can benefit from the product, helping them master their fundamental literacy and numeracy skills, which forms the foundation of them learning anything in their subsequent grades uh, or in their life ahead better. So now we want to help any student, be no matter what grade they are in, to be able to effectively learn better through a platform similar like Annie or Poly, wherein we have audio tactile interaction along with rich content specifically designed with visually impaired learners kept in mind, right? So there's no more layer of accessibility or no more, adaptation of the content that is out there for the sighted student, but we want rich content specifically to be built for visually impaired learners so they get to learn better, and their learning outcomes are at par with sighted peers. So
Terrific.
those are,
Well,
yeah.
very exciting indeed. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank all of you for being here, for informing us about Thinkerbell Labs, Annie, Polly, future efforts. Definitely look forward to following upcoming and future developments, and just want to wish you continued success with all future endeavors.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so
On
much.
behalf of the Thinkerbell Labs team, once again, we're very grateful for the opportunity and the platform you're giving to us. And I look forward to meeting you in person someday.
Our pleasure, most indefinitely. Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.